Alright, so in this video we're checking out the Moto G 2025. This is Motorola's entry-level smartphone, and this one comes in at the $200 price point. If you're wondering about the whole Moto G lineup, the G is the entry-level series. There's the G Power, which is basically the same phone, same processor with just double the RAM. So this has 4 gigabytes of RAM, and the Power has 8 gigabytes of RAM. And then there's the Moto G Stylus, which is the mid-range, coming at the $400 price point. So the G comes in at $199 or $200, and then the G Power is around $300, and then the Stylus is around $400. Now, of course, you can get this particular model on carrier deals for less. Of course, that'll be locked to that network. I'll talk about that a little bit later in the video, to sort of the pros and cons of what that involves. If you're just looking for a phone that's unlocked and can use on any carrier, then you will have to fork over the around $200 price point. You can get it a little bit cheaper renewed. If, obviously someone's bought it, used it, and returned it, and or something like that. It's going to be like, I think, around 170-ish right now at the time of the recording of this video. So if you want to save a little bit of money on a used version of this, you can pick it up for like around 170. Now, of course, this isn't going to be for everyone. This is an entry-level phone. If you're more budget conscious and you don't really need all of the fancy bling and the features of, say, a flagship phone. Here is my Samsung S25 Ultra. This one has pretty much no flaws as far as I can tell. It's perfect screen, perfect features and cameras and everything, but it comes at a pretty hefty cost. It's this one, with the extra storage I got, this one was around $1,400. So $200 phone, $1,400 phone. It's a pretty big difference in terms of what you're going to pay. Is it worth the extra $1,200 to get those extra features, or just go with something like this? And I'll explain sort of the pros and cons of this one here. It is entry level, budget oriented. It obviously isn't the fastest or the best in the world, but for most people, this is going to be totally fine. And especially if you're maybe giving a phone to your kids or someone that doesn't need all the bling and the best features out there, this will be totally usable for most people. So just taking a quick look around the phone itself, you can see we have a nice, I think it's a 6.7-inch LCD screen. It is Corning Gorilla Glass 3, I believe. So a little bit of scratch resistance. You have plastic frame here, so it's all plastic, and you have this, it's called an Eco leather back, and it's a little hard to see here. It's got sort of a leather feel. It is obviously fake leather, but it has I don't know, I would say it's more like a skin. So if you buy one of those like D brand skins and you stick it on the back of your phone, it's kind of similar in that texture. Let me just go ahead and show you the specs. So might as well go right here to the GSM Arena specs here. It's got a 6.7-inch screen, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 5,000 milliamp hour battery. Now this one has been out for some time now. It came out in January of 2025, earlier this year, about 6 months ago. This does have 5G LTE. Here are the dimensions there. It's 193 grams, so not the lightest phone in the world, but definitely, because it's it's got a plastic frame, it is lighter than ones with metal and glass. It does have a Corning Gorilla Glass 3 front, of course, here, and then the back is plastic and that eco leather, as I mentioned. This one does have a nano SIM and an eSIM capability. Of course, in order to use the eSIM capability, the phone needs to be unlocked. So if you want to get the phone and use it with an eSIM, you have to buy the unlocked version, or you can buy. This is a locked version on TracFone, and I'll explain a little bit more about that process there. But I did get it for a very, very low cost, about $50. But now I have to wait until it gets unlocked, and I'll explain what's involved in that before I can use the eSIM technology. And something at this price point, around $200, is pretty unusual to get the eSIM functionality, but I think we're going to start seeing that more and more. The Samsung phones, I think it's currently right now, the A16 series, is about the same price point, about $200, similar features, but that does not come with eSIM technology. So that is a interesting I guess, advantage for this Moto G. Now, this does have an IPS display. It's an LCD display, 120 hertz. It's a pretty nice panel, 6.7 inches, but as you can see here, it's only a 720p panel. Now, I can get this right up here, the phone right up to the camera, and you can see it actually has pretty good resolution. If I didn't know it was a 720p panel, I probably couldn't tell, because if you look right up on the screen and sort of zoom in on just tiny letters and stuff, it looks pretty sharp. So it's surprisingly good for a 720p panel. Now, the Samsung series in the same price point at $200, the A16, A15, those will come with AMOLED displays at a 1080p resolution. Now, if you're interested in a comparison between this and like an A15 or A16, let me know in the comments below. I can make a video if there's enough interest in that. But I just want to sort of explain there's one difference in terms of the technology between the two devices. So maybe they wanted with a little bit of a cost-cutting measure here for this particular device, even though Samsung is coming at the same price point with a 1080p AMOLED display. This is perhaps a con that you might want to consider if that's an important thing for you. It does come with Android 15 with 2 major Android upgrades, so you'll get 16 and 17 in this one, which is an improvement compared to the Moto Gs of the past. So if you go back to the 2024 series and 2023 series, and previously maybe would come with 1 year of an upgrade or maybe none. Obviously, because these are budget class devices, but now the expectation is to get more of these for longer term support. It does come with a MediaTek Dimensity 6300 processor or CPU. It's 6 nanometer processor CPU with, I think it's a Mali G57 GPU. The SIM tray slot does have a spot for the micro SD card, so if you want to expand the onboard storage, you can do that with this. But I don't really need that much storage, so I didn't put my particular unit here. My particular SKU, or this one is the 4 gigabyte, 64 gigabyte storage version. And again, you can get either the 128 or the 64 gigabyte storage on this particular model. I think they are doing this for the 2025 year, whereas previously in 2024, the lower storage version would be called the G Play, which doesn't exist now in 2025. And the regular G would come with 120 gigabytes. So they just kind of combine the two series into one, I think. I don't believe there's going to be a G Play 2025 coming out, if anyone's wondering. And of course, if you want more onboard RAM, instead of 4 gigabytes, you want 8 gigabytes, then I would suggest going for the G Power. It's essentially the same phone, same screen, same processor, just more RAM, so you can run more applications side by side if you want to do more multitasking. So the cameras on here, you have a 50 megapixel main camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera, and you do have a flash. The video is only 1080p at 30 FPS. So if you look back here, these are the cameras. This is the main 50 megapixel sensor. It's actually not bad. I don't know, the quality of the camera I would say is good enough for the $200 price point, but compared to a mid-range camera, say a phone in the $400 to $600 price point or higher, say even like my S25 Ultra, which is at $1,000 plus, it's definitely not as good. It is okay. It's pretty decent in very good lighting conditions, but as soon as you get into sort of low light or even nighttime shooting, you get a lot of noise and sort of artifacts that come into the pictures and the video. So obviously I wouldn't recommend this for people that are using this primarily for videography, but for things like Instagram, social media, Facebook, YouTube, the videos are, I would say, adequate. You're not going to be blowing anyone's socks off with the video quality, but it is good enough for the $200 price point, in my opinion. The secondary camera here is the 2 megapixel macro. So if you are taking up some close-up shots of something, It does blow up the image in sort of like a microscope sort of sense. And you do have to get very close to the object in order for this to work. Otherwise, if you're too far away, it's going to be blurry. Now this over here, this looks like a third camera. It's not a camera. They're calling this a depth sensor. It's probably for helping with the focusing for the video. And then of course this one here is the LED. The front-facing camera here is a 16 megapixel selfie, as you can see there, and also it shoots at 1080p 30. None of the cameras can do 4K video, and I think that's a limitation of the MediaTek Dimensity 6300 chip. It's fast enough for most things, it's just not fast enough for 4K video recording. All right, a few other notable things here. The USB-C port on the bottom here is 2.0 only. Has all these standard Wi-Fi there, A, B, G, and AC dual band. The fingerprint sensor is side mounted right here, and it does work very well. I've had no issues with that. The battery in here is very good. It's 5,000 milliamp hours, so you get all day battery use. I think about, in my experience, probably around 8 to 9 hours of screen on time. So, and that's a combination of surfing the web, watching some videos, just standard phone use, nothing particularly fancy. But if you're doing a lot of video watching, it's probably gonna be a little bit less. If you're primarily using it for, say, watching YouTube, you probably expect something in the 5 to 6 hour range. And it does have, the USB-C is 30 watt wire charging. There's no wireless charging on this device. There are two colors available for this one, the sapphire blue, and then the other one is the forest gray. Now, one of the things I noticed about some of the negative reviews about this phone that are out there is when people first get the phone, especially if they get it from one of the Verizon carriers, like for example, this is from TracFone, which is a Verizon MVNO. They come with a lot of bloatware when you first set up the phone. So typically in those review videos, you'll see the phone being set up and you'll see a bunch of stuff being downloaded. And while that is being downloaded and installed, the phone gets kind of laggy and it stutters a lot. And that was the case for this one as well, and it has to do with the fact that it only has 4 gigabytes of RAM. So it has a bunch of processes going on in the background that are installing software, doing configurations, etc. And of course, whenever those things are going on most phones, other than your flagship phones, then you're going to notice some stuttering and delays and lags and stuff. However, once you get past that, and what I did was I actually disabled and or uninstalled all those. Basically, a lot of them were like games. I think about 10 games got installed, and basically without your permission. And when you first get the phone and you're not on Wi-Fi, nothing happens. It was like, oh, I thought a bunch of bloatware would get installed when I was setting up the phone, because I didn't set it up with my cellular carrier, and I'll explain why in a second. I had it basically set up without any network. And it seemed fine. Like when you initially set it up, nothing was going on. It wasn't downloading anything because it wasn't connected to the internet. But as soon as I connected to Wi-Fi, a whole bunch of stuff started getting downloaded and installed. But if you wait until everything's finished, you just let it sit there, and then you come back, like a half an hour later, just uninstall everything, which is what I did. And then I disabled a bunch of sort of unnecessary either Motorola or Verizon software that's on this phone. And by the way, if you get the unlocked version, you don't get any of the Verizon bloatware or the downloading games. So the unlocked version will be free of that stuff, and you'll never get that. So another advantage of paying the extra money for the unlocked version, if you're worried about those kind of things. Of course, I'm explaining, this is one of the big downsides of getting the locked carrier version that's on Verizon. You get all that bloatware, but it's not terrible. You can't uninstall that stuff. You can disable stuff. And then after you do that, the phone is completely fine and very usable. No complaints. It's very responsive. I had no issues with starting once I disabled and uninstalled all that stuff. And just to show you here on my storage here, I have 64 gigabytes. When I had all that stuff downloaded, it went to like around 29 gigabytes used out of the 64, and then I installed all those games, and now I'm down to about 24 gigabytes. And I'm pretty much have all the apps I want on here. I can do things, watch my videos, surf the web, and do all those kind of things with the apps that are on here. Plus, I had some games that I installed as well, just for some demos. I wouldn't primarily call this a gaming smartphone. I installed a couple of games for like Mario Kart and Stumble Guys. Just showing here some what it looks like. It works. This was after I uninstalled all the other games, and it performs fine for these kind of low-end entry-level games. I wouldn't be using this for like your very highly graphic-intensive games. Just doesn't have enough RAM for that, and the video system, the graphics system just isn't tailored for high-end gaming. But for casual gaming, this is totally fine, and it's going to work. You're not going to really notice that much of a difference on the basically slightly lower graphics and a little bit lower speed on the processor. So as I mentioned earlier, I did get this on a carrier deal. I bought this as a TracFone locked phone. So I actually got this through QVC, I believe. And they had a sale. I think it was like $60 and then like $5 shipping plus tax. And then there was like a $20 coupon. So I paid $50 for this all up, shipping included and tax. And it included a TracFone 1-year plan as well. So I'll link that down in the video description if you're interested in picking this one up at that price. Comes with 1,500 calls, 1,500 text messages, and 1.5 gigabytes of data for 1 year. It's included in that $50 price. So if you're looking for a phone as a sort of a backup phone with a plan that has some data on it, this one includes that plan for 365 days or 1 year. So not a bad deal. Again, it is going to be locked to Verizon for 60 days. So after 60 days, it will unlock, and then you can use it with other carriers if you want. But I'm just going to be keeping this around as a sort of a backup phone, and I may test the eSIM stuff out later once it unlocks. But yeah, not bad for the money as a backup phone if you know how to sort of disable and uninstall software from your phone. If you're interested in a video on how to do that, let me know. There's tons of videos already on YouTube on how to do that kind of stuff. But once you uninstall and disable all the unnecessary stuff, the phone is very, very usable, and it performs quite well in my opinion. So you may be wondering why a lot of the bigger channels out there don't recommend something like this at this lower price point. And in my opinion, they want you to buy the $1,200 or $1,400 S25 Ultra or whatever is the most expensive phone out there. And probably because in terms of their affiliate sales, they're going to get bigger commissions there in terms of a cut of whatever money you put forth to pick up that phone. And that's my opinion. You feel free to disagree on that, but that's, a lot of the bigger channels push the more really expensive stuff and then claim that these, lower end phones are completely worthless. And I don't believe that's the case. I think that these have a lot of value. They're very functional. You just have to sort of have an understanding of what your expectations are for something like this. If you are a power user, you're going to be, running 30 apps at the same time. You need the fastest gaming processor, the best screen possible, the best possible cameras, and of course the $200 price point isn't going to meet your needs. There's just no way that it's going to. In that case, you just have to fork over the money. Obviously there's people out there like, I want the features and the specs of the $1,400 phone at the $200 price point. Unfortunately, that world doesn't exist yet. So sorry guys, if you're one of those guys, you'll just have to wait a little longer. I'm not sure when that's going to be, but maybe sometime down the road, 10 years from now, you'll get that. But overall, highly recommend this phone. If you're looking for, a good phone at this price at $200, it definitely will meet the needs for most people. I'll link where I picked this up at QVC down in the video description, as well as the Amazon link to the unlocked version. That'll do it for this video, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.